Imagine this pressure cooker moment. You're in the operating theater. The clinical list is running late. The atmosphere is, really tense, and the team is rushing. You hit that mandatory WHO safety timeout, and that's when it happens. Someone realizes the site marking and the patient paperwork are dangerously mismatched. A wrong site nerve block procedure was averted literally in the final seconds. The adrenaline is high, staff are shaken, but mercifully, the patient is physically safe. For now. When that initial clinical danger is neutralized and the tension settles, what is the single most important action you must take first? And this isn't a test of your surgical skill, it's a test of your systems thinking. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're focusing on that exact moment, the high-stakes, must-know topic of learning from adverse events. We're diving into the steps that national bodies like the GMC and NHS mandate for turning these incidents and near misses into actionable, safer care. Our mission is to really break down these frameworks so you can master them for quick knowledge application in any clinical scenario.
Absolutely. And the core truth here, the one thing to always hold on to, is the principle that guides all best practice. We must report, involve, analyze proportionately, act decisively, and then share the learning.
Right.
Fundamentally, learning from adverse events just means taking these moments of failure, or near failure, and converting them into institutional knowledge that prevents it from happening again.
And that framework, it matters because it protects everyone.
Exactly. It safeguards the patient by fixing system weaknesses, it supports staff by promoting what we call a just culture, and it shields the organization from repeated failures. The goal is always timely recording, analysis through the appropriate systems, and an effective measurable action.
That makes perfect sense on paper, but, after a major near miss like our theater scenario, everyone just wants to forget it and move on with the list. I have to ask, why is that very first administrative step, logging the event, so non-negotiable, even when no harm was done?
That is the critical hurdle. We call these events near misses, but honestly, they are gold mines of data.
Gold mines, okay.
They reveal the exact same vulnerabilities in the system as catastrophic events do. If you ignore it because, well, no harm occurred, you are guaranteeing that vulnerability will remain until someone is harmed.
So you're just kicking the can down the road.
Precisely. Immediate non-negotiable logging means entering the event promptly into the national system LFPSC.
LFPSC?
Learning from patient safety events. It's the NHS's central repository. Timely entry ensures visibility and lets us see patterns across the entire NHS. I mean, if your local hospital has 10 near misses with misplaced surgical trays, but those are never logged nationally,
then no one else learns.
Exactly. Other trusts using the same workflow won't know the risk even exists. Visibility is the foundation. It's where all learning starts.
Okay, so logging is step one. It makes the event visible to the system. Once that initial log is done, what's the structure we use to guide the response? Because, just logging it doesn't fix it.
That's right. And for that, we use a high-yield sequence. The easiest way to remember the steps for effective governance is the mnemonic LEARN.
Learn.
It breaks down into L for log, E for engage, A for analyse, and we'll come back to this, but proportionately.
Proportionately, got it.
R for react with smart actions, and N for notify, or feedback. That sequence keeps you perfectly aligned with all the governance expectations.
Let's focus on that A analyse proportionately. This involves something called PSIRF, the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people associate incident analysis with those massive, deep dive root cause analyses, the RCAs that take months. PSIRF seems to demand something more flexible. What does proportionate actually mean in practice?
It's the difference between using a sledgehammer and a scalpel. Not every event warrants a 6-week deep investigation with multiple department heads. I mean, that just wastes resources and it delays targeted fixes. PSIRF dictates that the level of response has to be proportional to the potential learning value and the risk.
Okay, so give me an example.
Sure. Let's say your wrong site near miss was clearly due to one worn-out piece of equipment in the theater. A quick local huddle, maybe a rapid review within 48 hours might be enough.
And that's it.
That's enough to identify, procure, and replace that equipment. That's proportionate.
But what if? What if the near miss happened because of extreme pressure, chronic staffing shortages, and maybe a culture where staff were afraid to speak up until the last second?
Now you've uncovered a systemic issue.
Right.
And that shifts the risk profile dramatically. In that case, the PSIRF model mandates a much more in-depth investigation, a full systems analysis, because the issue is organizational and cultural, not just, a faulty piece of kit. Proportionate means selecting the right tool to uncover the depth of the system failure.
That distinction between a quick huddle and a deep system review that links directly to this concept we hear so often, just culture. We're taught that blame is the wrong answer, but practically, what does a just culture look like? And why is focusing on the individual practitioner such a dangerous trap?
A just culture is where we differentiate between, say, human error that arises from a system failure and reckless or malicious behavior. And the vast majority of incidents stem from good people operating in reasonable systems, but under unreasonable pressures.
The problem with immediate blame is psychological, I assume.
It is. If staff fear that reporting an error, even a near miss, will lead to punishment or disciplinary action or public shaming, they'll just stop reporting.
And silence destroys visibility.
Exactly. Blame creates a punitive environment which guarantees system vulnerabilities persist, completely hidden from view.
So if we look back at our theater scenario, instead of asking, why did Dr. X nearly mark the wrong site, a just culture response asks, what?
It asks, what were the system factors that set Dr. X up to fail? We look at the why behind the error. Was the consent form layout confusing? Was the lighting poor? Was the team so exhausted from excessive hours that cognitive failure was, well, almost inevitable? That is the system's lens that PSIRF demands.
So it's not a no-blame culture, then?
That's a key nuance. No, it's not a no-blame culture. If a practitioner behaves recklessly, ignoring established safe procedures, that does warrant accountability. But we must always start by investigating the system first. Always. Because that's where the greatest, most widespread learning comes from.
That is a powerful distinction. Let's transition now to the human side of that learn framework, the E for engage. The source material stresses compassionate engagement. That applies to the patient, of course, but also to the staff involved. What are the GMC anchors guiding our involvement with the patient and their family?
This is governed by the GMC's professional duties and specifically the duty of candor.
Candor.
And it is non-negotiable. It requires you to be open and honest when things go wrong, or nearly go wrong. For a near miss like the wrong site block, candor requires you to explain what happened, why it happened, and what you're doing to stop it from happening again, even if no physical harm was ultimately caused.
What are the practical steps there?
You agree on how the patient and family wish to be contacted. You provide compassionate, regular updates. And you share the final findings of the review.
I think a lot of practitioners worry about that conversation, about admitting a mistake or a near miss, especially one that could have been so serious. How do we approach that?
It's about leading with transparency and empathy. You have to intervene early if you notice that candor is being withheld.
So silence is a red flag.
Silence is a major ethical red flag and a breach of professional duty. You must ensure the patient or family is informed, even if it feels difficult. It builds trust, and it's fundamental to the learning process.
Okay, so we've logged the incident, engaged the stakeholders, and analyzed the system factors, the lighting, the culture, the paperwork. We're now at the critical final steps. Analysis is, well, it's academic if nothing changes. How do we move from insight to measurable, accountable improvement?
This is the R in Learn React, and this is where we implement smart actions. Honestly, this is often the weakest point in the whole learning loop.
Where it all falls apart.
It's where many organizational efforts fail. A smart action has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So if your PSIRF analysis revealed that the theater whiteboard, where the site marking was checked, was positioned behind a trolley and was poorly lit, that's the system failure.
So a poor action would be something like remind staff to check the whiteboard.
Exactly. That is a classic low-scoring action because it blames the human for the system failing to support them.
Right.
A high-scoring smart action would be something like redesign the theater workflow to relocate the safety checklist display board to the central scrub sink area.
That's specific and relevant.
Yes. Then you add an owner,
Yeah.
theater manager. That makes it achievable. A deadline, 4 weeks, and a metric. Audit compliance rate of checklist verification at 100% within 2 months.
Measurable and time-bound.
Precisely.
And that sets a tangible goal with real accountability. What about the end notify and feedback? How does that close the loop?
Because the process is absolutely not complete when the action is written down. The final step is to feedback and monitor the impact. This ensures accountability. It ensures governance. You have to revisit that action, say, at your safety huddle in 4 weeks, to check the metric.
And what if it hasn't worked?
The ultimate red flag here is no action tracking. A fix without a metric or an owner will just fade away. If your audit shows compliance hasn't improved, the risk is still there, and you have to be ready to adjust the action plan. We're aiming for sustained, measurable change.
The listener, I'm sure, is looking for the fastest way to recognize the traps that undermine this whole process. You've mentioned a few red flags, but if we generalize, what are the major pitfalls that lead to low-scoring outcomes in these scenarios?
The traps almost universally violate the golden rule.
Which is?
We require proportionate systems learning, never silence or blame. So let's break down the classic decoys that masquerade as good options. Trap 1. Ignoring near misses.
No harm, no foul.
Exactly. The option that suggests you only need to record events that resulted in actual harm. This fails because, as we establish, near misses reveal identical system weaknesses. You have to record and learn from every safety incident.
Okay, what's trap 2?
Mandatory full investigation for everything. This sounds thorough, but it's disproportionate. It ties up resources unnecessarily, and it delays rapid, targeted fixes for smaller issues. Always prioritize the appropriate PSIRF response level.
Makes sense. Trap 3.
The private punishment. Sending a confidential disciplinary email to the individual involved without investigating the system. This is the fastest way to destroy trust and guarantee zero future reporting. You must pivot the inquiry to the context and the systems.
And finally, trap 4.
Isolating the learning. The suggestion that findings should be kept strictly confidential or only shared with the department involved.
But that goes against the whole idea of national learning.
Completely. It fails the share principle. Learning has to spread across the organization and, ideally, across the entire NHS via LFPSC visibility so others can avoid the same pitfall.
And there's one more pitfall, isn't there? Implementing an action that isn't smart. For instance, mandatory retraining for everyone in the theater.
That's a perfect example. Mandatory retraining is often the go-to default, but it's frequently a low-scoring option if system factors like exhaustion or poor equipment design are the root cause. If the system is broken, retraining staff to work around a broken system will never, ever lead to sustainable change. The action has to address the root cause from the system's analysis.
So the high-scoring mindset, the professional mindset, it always involves visibility, compassionate accountability, and a shift away from personal blame toward concrete system improvement.
Exactly. It's always log the events, engage the people, analyze the system, act with ownership, and share the results widely.
So what does this all mean for the next time you face a high-stakes clinical incident or a near miss? Your response framework has to demonstrate transparency, engagement, proportionate analysis, and accountable change. Let's just quickly recap the 4 pillars that must anchor your response. First, record early. Visibility enables learning through LFPSC. Second, engage compassionately. Candor and inclusion of patients and staff are paramount. Third, analyze proportionately with the systems lens using those PSIRF principles. And finally, act with smart ownership and ensure you feed back the results to close the loop.
And this brings us to the final necessary thought that elevates good practice to great practice. We know safety and candor come first, but true learning requires sustained, tracked action. So think about the importance of a just culture. What tangible systems are you putting in place? The named owners, the deadlines, the metrics, to monitor the actual impact of your actions over time. And, maybe more importantly, how would you use PSIRF principles and system factors to reframe a difficult situation if the culture around you felt punitive? That sustained focus is what truly ensures the learning loop closes, making healthcare safer for everyone. For further high-yield frameworks and deeper analysis of these scenarios, exploring resources like pastthemsra.com can be invaluable.